All right, well, thank you everyone for coming to this talk. I think I wanted to talk a little bit about pricing and packaging. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Metronome. For those of you who don't know, Metronome is a usage billing platform, and we're lucky enough to work with Anyscale and a number of other companies in this room. And so I want to talk a little bit about the lessons we've learned over the past, I would say, 4 years around how to price and package, and particularly how to think about pricing and packaging for AI. So I think the first thing that everyone should understand or think about is the default pricing for software in Silicon Valley is really the seat model, the subscription model. If you sell software, you probably price this way. Now, there's an exception, like infrastructure companies are very clearly on usage-based, but traditional SaaS is really, really focused on a seat subscription model. Gives customers a ton of control, a ton of visibility into their spend, and so it's like a really ideal model for a lot of businesses. The challenge is that AI doesn't really behave like a traditional SaaS product, and so seat-based pricing, subscription pricing doesn't really work very well. So why? What are the reasons for that? So the first is, I'm sure all of you are aware, the underlying cost to serve an AI model is quite high in a lot of cases. And having your pricing be kind of in a seat model independent of costs is really setting yourself up for failure in a lot of ways. So, you could launch a new product and it's uses the hottest new OpenAI libraries, and if no one uses it, sure, your flat fee is going to be fine. But if customers really use your product, suddenly, choosing to charge $20 a month could easily put you into a cost-negative place. Your most successful customers are actually costing you the most money. That's a really terrible place to be from a value exchange perspective. The second reason is that if you price in a seat-based model, you're kind of saying to the user, the value you get from this product is access to the underlying platform, which can make sense, but in a lot of cases with infra and with AI, the value is actually a lot more granular than that. It's also a lot less like, okay, Bob signs into his account and that's the value that I get. In AI, especially as you start to think about agents, that the nouns in that sentence don't even make sense. Does a user actually sign into the product? Is an agent a human? Does that person need to be charged in a seat? It really adds a lot of confusion to the customer value equation. And then I think the other thing that's really true about AI, I'm sure you all know better than I, is that model capabilities for AI are changing constantly. And so as models get better, your value to the customer is changing. So, if you're doing your job, the model is getting more powerful, it's getting IQ points or however you reason about it, the model is getting more valuable. If you are charging a flat fee for that value, then where is your economic incentive to make your model smarter? It actually doesn't exist. And so having a flat fee or a seat model as your pricing model kind of really doesn't fit with the kind of core conceit of AI models that are continuously improving and getting better over time. I think the other thing that I would just say that kind of makes seats not an ideal model is that pricing and packaging, the way I like to think about it, is it's like convergent evolution. In Darwinian terms, what that means is like a population is kind of constantly exploring for new mutations, new ways of thinking about exchanging value with their customers. And as they they will do an experiment. Maybe I will charge this one customer on a usage basis. And then if that starts to take off, what it can do is it can shift the entire market. So if you guys, work in AI, you probably know the token model. You pay for every token that you use. You might ask yourself, is tokens really the best way for me to exchange value with my customers? And the answer is, in a lot of cases, no. But the reason why you charge in tokens is because the LLM providers charge in tokens, and they took off like wildfire and kind of set the entire industry on their path. So that kind of Darwinian kind of evolutionary game where pricing and packaging is used to kind of try to, optimize for exactly the right way to sell your software is happening continuously. And so what that means is that you need to listen to where the other competitors are going, and you need to either go after and kind of charge in exactly the same way, or, strike out on your own and try some brand new evolutionary path, but risk the fact that that path might be a bad branch and you have to come back to regress to the mean. And so I think it's really important that you kind of understand that pricing doesn't exist in a vacuum. Pricing is in relation to your competitors and what they charge. Okay, so, I talked a lot about why seats don't make sense. What does make sense? And as a usage billing vendor, I'm going to say usage, but I'll explain why. So the basic idea is what matters for AI and pricing. The first thing is again, kind of going back to the fact that models are changing all the time, capabilities are changing all the time, the number one thing I advise people to do when they're thinking about pricing for a fast-moving, emergent market is be flexible, be iterative. I worked at Dropbox for many, many years. I ran pricing and packaging for them. We were changing prices all the time. You may think that we had 3 prices, good, better, best. In reality, we had 3,000 prices live at any given time in the world. And that kind of iteration was what was required in order for us to keep, kind of constantly improving the business. And I would say AI is like that, but on steroids. Some of our customers, have hundreds of thousands of prices in the wild. They are constantly looking for what's exactly the right way to price. And then at the same time, their underlying capabilities are changing all the time. They're adding in new models, new capabilities. They're constantly changing. And I would say the main thing that I advise almost everyone who's thinking about pricing is hold it loosely, do an experiment, figure out the right thing, but iterate and plan to iterate in the future, now and in the future. Kind of building on that last point, I think the most important thing that you need to think about when you're doing pricing is how can your whole job, especially as a startup, is to launch quickly. Your pricing needs to match. You need to be optimizing for what gets you into market as fast as you possibly can, and then you need to iterate once you're in market. I think it's really important as you're thinking about launching a new pricing and packaging that speed and iteration cycles is the right thing. It's really tempting to think of pricing as some kind of precious thing that you set once and you get one shot. And in reality, almost every large company is doing pricing experiments at all times, and you don't get one shot. If you screw up, that's okay. As long as you're open and transparent to your customers, you can iterate and move forward. And so I would not bias toward trying to overanalyze a lot of this stuff. In fact, most of the time when we're doing pricing internally, we're trying to learn from our customers in real time, and we're talking to customers and constantly trying to refine exactly how we think about pricing. I think another thing that lots of people miss on specifically consumption-based pricing is that as a consumer, I kind of fundamentally hate usage-based pricing. I hate not knowing how much money I'm going to spend this month versus next month versus the month after that. And so you, as a vendor who has to sell or wants to sell in a usage-based way, you have to go the extra mile to make your product more accessible to your end customer. So if you're a customer of, for instance, Databricks or AWS, or et cetera, you've probably noticed they have cost controls and cost explorers and lots of investment into the internal billing dashboards. That's required because customers, especially as they scale, need a lot more data and information to build up trust that the price that you're charging them is mapped to the value that they're getting. And so this visibility into spend is really, really critical and really, really important for your customers. Another thing that I think is really important to consider, especially as you're engaging in this, is that a lot of businesses these days start out in this product-led mode. You don't have any salespeople, people sign up on the website, maybe they don't pay you anything, and then at a certain point they graduate, they grow up, and they talk to a salesperson and get upsold, et cetera. I think it's really important as you're designing your usage-based business model that you plan for that kind of handoff between a customer who's no touch and a customer who needs a lot of hand-holding. What I would say is just kind of anecdotally, based on my experience in this and the experience of our customers, is that what ends up happening is your fastest growing customers grow at a rate that is like a power law distribution. And you really need to make sure that those fastest growing customers have a clean, they're gonna say, I never wanna talk to a salesperson in my life. And then a year later, they're gonna be 10 times this size and they're gonna demand to talk to your sales team. I think what that really means is on a usage-based model, because the unit of value is so continuous and unbounded in the top side, you really need to prepare a little bit earlier than a traditional subscription-based business model for unifying essentially the product-led motion and the sales-led motion. I think the last thing, and this is my last slide, I know we're at happy hour, I don't want to hold you back from alcohol, but there's two things that I'm really thinking a lot about in AI and pricing today. So the first is this concept of outcome-based pricing. If you're paying attention to Zendesk, for instance, they just announced this major launch where they're basically saying seat model is dead. We're going into an agent-based world. Agents, their core value in Zendesk case is deflecting tickets from your team. So we're going to charge you for every ticket we successfully deflect and prevent from landing in your ticket queue. That's pretty extreme. They're going from a seat-based world into a pure outcome-based world. I think it's to the Darwinian point earlier, I think it's kind of risky for them, but also think it's kind of smart. And I'm like watching that with a lot of like bated breath, because I do think this like outcome-based concept really does map price to value. If you're building AI, you're creating intelligence, how do you actually measure and quantify the value of intelligence? It's really about the work that they're doing on your behalf, and outcomes is a pretty good way of measuring the value of that work. I think the other thing that's really, really important, kind of dovetailing on this point, is this concept of agents. I think agents and seats are like completely at odds with each other. Like, think Salesforce. They charge you for every user that has access to the deployment. In a world where you have 10,000 agents, are you really paying for 10,000 additional seats? In some sense, creating new agents deletes seats from your account. You need 0 seats. And so like, I do think that this, like, to the extent that these agentic workflows are starting to take off and starting to have traction, I do think it puts an even greater level of pressure, because the idea of agents is that one human can now be like superpower multiplied. And so you need to have a value equation where like basically the superpower, the multiplication, the leverage factor of that user is amplified. And I think a static seat model is like extremely basic way of thinking about that problem, and is very, very unlikely to actually work. So those are some things I've been thinking about. Thank you for joining this lightning talk. Hopefully it was appropriately lightning. And if you have questions, come talk to me. I'm Scott at Metronome. Thanks.